Thank you for taking time out of your day to participate in today's panel. Over the next hour, you will hear from Michael J. McLeod, author of The Brave Ones, a memoir of hope, pride, and military service. Laura Colbert, author of Sirens, How to Pee Standing Up, an alarming memoir of combat and coming back home. And Jose Navarro, author of Unbreakable, Unstoppable, an American soldier's story of coming home. Today's panel will be moderated by Saul Martinez, Director of Warrior Services for Warriors and Quiet Waters Foundation. Saul is a passionate advocate for veterans, devoted family man, talented artist, and amateur ukulele player.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Emily. So I want to echo what Emily said. We are so excited to have everybody here, everybody that's taken time to join us and to hear from these three incredible individuals. And with that, I want to get right into it because we want to get to all of the things. We want to hear about their journeys. We want to hear about their journey in writing, in service, and in their life. So with that, small disclaimer on my part, because I'm a former soldier in Army, and it just so happens that the rest of the panelists are Army and National Guard. Just happened that way. Maybe Marine Corps, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, maybe read a few more books, I don't know. But everybody just happens to be Army. It just worked out that way. And I'm actually, it's pretty exciting. So these memoirs that they're gonna talk about and these individuals and the things they've been through, they matter. They're stories that most of the general public haven't heard before, and their perspectives of reality of what it means in being a soldier and being in combat and coming back home, especially support systems, everything. It's all encompassing. So with that, I'd like to start with Laura Colbert, who is a former military police officer in the Army National Guard, and she is a WQW, a Warriors and Quiet Waters alumna. And she is the author of Sirens, How to Pee Standing Up. And don't worry, we'll get to that a little bit. And so, hi, Laura. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We're stoked to have you. Next up, we have Jose Navarro, who is a former Army Cavalry Scout, which, if you don't know about Cav Scouts, they do a lot of really awesome things and really high-speed things for the Army, and they are incredible assets to the front lines. So, he's also a WQW alumni, and he was deployed with the prestigious 82nd Airborne Division. So welcome, Jose. We're stoked to have you.
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And last but certainly not least, we have Mike McLeod, who is a former Army combat correspondent, which means he was right there in the middle with team size all the way up to company size elements, capturing these moments that you see on social media, the media, everywhere else of soldiers engaged in combat. That's what Mike McLeod did. And he is not a WQW alumnus, but he is a very, very important part of Warriors in Quiet Waters. All those awesome photos you see on our social media and on our website, that was Mike McLeod and his lovely wife, Barbara, who you can see right there. They're just the best team. If you know Mike McLeod and Barbara McLeod, you know, their positive energy is so contagious. And, you know, our participants get to go home with these incredible photos that they'll cherish forever. And we're so lucky to have Mike McLeod. And he coincidentally also served with the 82nd Airborne Division. So Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Saul. It's an honor to be here.
Let's get right to it. Laura, I'll start with you. What was your inspiration?
So when we were first mobilized as a National Guard unit, we had no idea what the war was going to bring. It was in March 2003. We hadn't even bombed Baghdad yet. So I decided to journal the experience the entire time. And I still have those two very full journals at my house. And I took the journals and put it into a digital format. And ever since I got home, I wanted to write a book about my experience, because within the 16 months of our deployment, it went from kind of a peacekeeping mission to all hell broke loose, and you know, we lost a soldier and saw a lot of combat. And I knew I had a good story to tell. Problem is I couldn't get out of that military verbiage and make it civilian friendly. So when I finally got an editor about 5 years ago, we hit the ground running about 2.5 years ago and finally got the book in a format that is readable and hopefully enjoyable. And, one of the things that really pushed me to write the book, when I got back from war in 2004 and went right into college, I could not relate to the people sitting next to me anymore because of all the experiences I had gone through. Their biggest troubles were what they were going to wear to the party on Friday night. And I just got shot at for 16 months and I just couldn't relate. So when I started realizing that, I gave a presentation to my kinesiology department at UW-Madison. And that was really where I realized how little the civilians know and how much I can share with them. And that was another reason that I wanted to start writing the book.
I think transition issues are sometimes overlooked. Mike McLeod, what made you write The Brave Ones?
I had friends in the military. They both came late in life, went to college with them, and they were out of the military actually for something like 20 years, and they both came in. So I knew them very well. And during the early days of the war, after the invasion of Iraq, when we were in Afghanistan as well, their accounts of what was going on were vastly different than what the media was telling us. And I thought, well, I'm at a good point in my life to do something about it. So I actually joined wanting to write a book to begin with. So I have probably about a dozen little black books that I kept with me at all times, even during basic training, and took notes the whole time. In fact, the Army, my drill sergeants thought I was CID, doing an investigation on basic training. But that was pretty apparent because I was so ignorant about the Army. They pretty much wrote me off after a little bit. Anyway, so I wanted to get firsthand experience to see what was really going on, and that's what I did.
Awesome, thanks. And just for everybody watching, CID is a section of the Army that's called the Criminal Investigation Division. They're basically the internal affairs of the Army. Jose Navarro, your question is actually two parts. Where and when were you when you decided to write Unbreakable, Unstoppable? And then can you also tell us what's going on in that picture of you laying in the hospital bed with a man you and I both know? His name is Sergeant Major Capel.
Well, what made me write my book is actually I was going through a coaching program with Warriors in Quiet Waters, and my whole thing was to transition back to school. And because due to my injuries, I spent 5.5 years in a hospital with 7.5 years total surgeries, and over 100 surgeries. I had a colostomy bag, urostomy bag. I couldn't walk, but all my injuries are pretty much covered up with a t-shirt and jeans. And I was as I was going through the program with Warriors in Quiet Waters, I got an infection on one of the devices that they implanted in me, and I had never experienced nothing like that, and it got really, really bad. So school wasn't an option. I was bedridden again for months, and I've always wanted to write a book just about my life in general. Just before the military, I've had an interesting hand dealt, and so I took that time being laid up just to kind of focus on writing my book, because I had wrote an outline previously and I tried to kind of pitch it to people before, but I've been told that, hey, you're not a Navy SEAL, you're not famous enough, or this is too graphic. People don't want to hear this kind of things, and I feel that it was important that people understand the basically the brutal reality in all its intimate detail of what American soldiers go through, and their the aftermath, the results of that, and the effect it has on young lives. And this photo here, that is I'm taking a life support nap after a little tussle with the Taliban. You should see the other kid, but it was about 200 plus force of them and about 14 scouts. And it was a complex ambush. And prior, I had got hit with bullet fragments, shrapnel, and then eventually an armor-piercing RPG came through. I was the gunner on the Humvee on the truck, and it came through the driver's side window, and it went straight through me, and that was the beginning of about a 7-year recovery and over 100 plus surgeries. So my inspiration was just that I wanted to show people who American soldiers are, where we come from, the things they go through. And really also, I wanted my story out there just for whoever needs it. You know, no matter what kind of, you know, hardship you're going through, you could look at my life and be like, man, you know, this guy, he got dealt this hand. And, you know, no matter how shitty the circumstances are, you can overcome and you can be happy in the end. You know, and I am beyond blessed, and I'm grateful to be alive. And I did not feel like that for years.
Oh, thanks, man. Laura and Mike, do you have a little bit of that similar perception when you guys wrote your books?
Yeah, sure. I think that the one thing that service in the Army, and probably the armed services in general, teaches you that these two weird things. One is everyone has a compelling story because it's your life, and you know it's the most important thing to you. But on the same token, nobody's special. You know, absolutely nobody is. And even Saul Martinez, who stepped on an ID and blew up both of his legs, you know, you're not special. You know that. I know a lot of people who did that, but you know what? You figured out a way to be damn useful, and that's all you can do. And I think Laura and Jose realized as well that, and that's what military service teaches you, is that it's much better to be useful than to be special.
Laura, a little bit of your perceived outcome to your book.
Yeah.
Did you read somebody?
When I started giving the presentation, it was really great awareness among the civilians on what soldiers go through, whether they were female or male. And my perspective was just a little bit different because I had to learn how to pee standing up, and I had to figure out how to deal with my periods and all those other things, and sexual harassment and the belittling that can occur, especially in an environment like Iraq where women are deemed second level to the men. But since I have started giving presentations and writing my book, the post-traumatic stress has really come out as a powerful point for fellow soldiers as well. So civilians are appreciative because they understand battles that soldiers go through that they know, and then soldiers are also appreciative because they know that they're not alone when it comes to post-traumatic stress.
And hopefully to everybody watching, if you haven't picked up their books yet, or if you haven't read their books, you know, please do. What was one of the most important things that you absolutely had to get out there? Laura, we'll start with you.
Even though I was a woman and women weren't officially allowed on the front lines when I was at war, we truly were on the front lines. We were interchangeable with the infantry the entire time. They came and helped us pull security. We went on their missions to help search the women. You know, every day I left the compound, I was in danger driving the Humvee everywhere we went because IEDs started to become more prevalent. And also we were getting hit with mortars and rockets in our compound on almost a nightly basis towards the end of our deployment. So no matter where you were in danger. I went to the bathroom one time before I went to the gym, and 5 minutes later we were barraged by mortars. I went outside and that same porta potty was incinerated. So, you know, had I taken a longer time in there, I wouldn't be here today. So I think just showing that women are equal in that regard was really important for me. I lived in England for a short stint, and a woman asked me, "Oh, were you fighting in a women's war? Or did you even carry a weapon?" And so again, those are points that I wanted to show in the book, that it was the Iraq War. And also, you know, just going back to that post-traumatic stress aspect and how it hits everybody in different ways and at different times. It took me a year to have my post-traumatic stress reaction. And then, you know, like some people drink, I cry. And so I just really wanted to show that there's variety out there, and you just never really know what to expect from a soldier.
You know, I could tell you like, hey, you know, I got blown up, I had 100 surgeries, but nobody really understands what that's like or what that takes away from your life, you know, or, you know, especially that happening to a 22-year-old kid. And you see a lot of, you know, a lot of stories out there about the military, or you see a lot of, you know, people think wounded soldiers and they see the double amputee and his cute little bald head with his little fishing pole, and they're like, oh, well, what an inspiration, you know, but they don't understand the journey that it took for that individual to be there, you know, and they don't, you know, missing limbs are visually, you know, stunning, and they get people's attention, but no one really talks about the other injuries that go on with war. And living in 5.5 years in a hospital, I've seen some gruesome gruesome shit. And, you know, even, you know, I've seen guys where they look perfectly normal, but, you know, they just start convulsing or going to seizures because they got their brain rocked, you know? So no one really talks about like, hey, you know, they can tell you, hey, I got burned, but nobody knows what it's like really to get skin grafts on, you know, 40% of your body, you know, or the shattered bones or genital mutilation, you know, and they're uncomfortable topics and they're just as harsh and nightmarish as they sound, you know, but these are what, you know, young men and women experience all the time. You know, it destroys, you know, young lives. And another thing I felt was important was the transition out, you know, or trying to, because once I got out of the hospital, you know, I went to Afghanistan for a year, then 5.5 years in the hospital. Then it was just like, yeah, you know, go be like everybody else, you know, and you can't relate to anybody. You know, no one had my life, you know, everyone's, you know, complaining about the bills and how much work sucks. And, you know, they have no clue about, you know, or of how to relate to you, you know. So I wanted to stress the importance too, just how important it is just to have people support you and stick with you. And, you know, luckily for me, you know, like I had my mother, you know, I had my uncle, I had people that stuck with me no matter how much of an asshole that I was, you know, because you're not the most pleasant person when you're on medication and you're going through all that shit, you know. And it's just very important to stick with people, you know, and even if it's, you know, like I text my buddies, you know, even when I don't talk to them, just a little F you, just to let them know that I'm here and I care, you know. And, you know, when I was in going through my stuff, I would be depressed in my room crying in bed, you know, and my mom would go in there and be like, hey, you know, you mind not crying like a little girl because I'm trying to watch my show. You know, she didn't let me, you know, feel pity for myself. You know, she always gave me that kick in the ass, you know. And so those were basically the things that I want to stress, the importance of, you know, your buddy check, of, you know, supporting people that go through these things or supporting the troops, and just, you know, to make people or help people understand, you know, what it actually is to go through those things.
I'm glad you put pen to paper and put those things out there, Jose. Mike McLeod?
Yeah. You know, at the end of the movie Saving Private Ryan, where the captain says, you've got to earn it. You've got to earn that sacrifice. And that's easy to say and easy to think about. You go to these movies and you think about, okay, they're dying for us to have freedom. And you know, we have these great concepts, but the difficulty of living after that for everyone is that you see that the heroic act was really so that we can make a whole bunch of really mundane choices every day. And you don't feel like it's kind of you don't feel like it's a big deal. Okay, this guy died and got his ass blown off so that, you know, we could go to the grocery store and pick one out of 50 different kinds of cereal. And that's the difficulty. So I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what it is. And so when we're thinking about the service of troops, I think it's just really good to understand what was sacrificed so that every day we get up and we can say, yeah, I'm going to make good choices today. Even if they're small choices, I'm going to make good choices.
Mike, can you tell me a little bit about this photo, please?
Sure. That was at Camp Ramadi, which is capital of Al-Anbar province in Iraq. That's in, I think, 2006, it was the most dangerous city in the world. At that point, it was pretty mild. The guy on the left is Command Sergeant Major Chuck Gregory. He was the battalion Command Sergeant Major for 373 Cav, a sister unit of Jose's. The fellow on the right is Brent Hendricks. And what you're looking at is a group of soldiers who are in Iraq as part of Operation Proper Exit. And what they're doing is they're all maimed on the battlefield, and they were essentially got blown up. And the next thing they knew, they woke up in Germany or somewhere, busted apart. To alleviate the mental stress of that, they were flown back to the battlefield where they were injured or over it sometimes. So they could actually walk off the battlefield themselves, so to have a sense of closure. And so I know that you and Jose were part of that at different times. Hendricks was super tall, and you could just see he walked, he hauled along, and you could see he was just put back together with nuts and bolts, but just an amazing attitude. he was a huge inspiration. And I think after he left Iraq, he became a huge inspiration to, and a leader in veteran health, mental health. Well, during the outbreak of COVID, with all this quarantine and isolation, he took his own life. I have a growing catalog of soldiers with whom I served who have taken their own life. And it's tragic, because these are the inspirational ones. So what it makes me think of is, you know what? You're not one and done. You don't just, okay, I'm fixed, I have a great attitude, I'm good. It's every single day you wake up, you need to check on your buddies, you need to have a mission in life, and it's mental health is an ongoing thing. I think that's something we all need to keep in mind.
Thank you for sharing all that, Mike. I thought it's important for people to know the reality and some of the effects of war. Laura and Jose, do you have anything to say on that topic, the effects of war and the struggles that people may or may not see or know about?
You know, when I was in the hospital at Walter Reed, you know, I was obviously going through a lot of medication. So, you know, I never slept at night, you know, and I'd go outside and I'd smoke cigarettes. And occasionally, you know, every other week or so, you would see an ambulance come about 3 a.m. and they pull some guy out of the, you know, the Malone House, which is like a hotel, an on-base or on-post hotel for the hospital where the soldiers stay. And you would see these ambulances come in and, you know, take people away, and they'd have the IV going and everything. And it's a hospital, so I mean, you don't really think nothing of it. And I've watched this go on for years, you know, and it wasn't until about, you know, 3-4 years later in the hospital, you know, where I found out those were the suicides, you know, that they were taken out of the hospital. And I remember one time, I mean, they even had you know, called us all and gave us a class, because I mean, there was like 20 guys in 1 month that just off themselves. I mean, you know, at the height of the war, you know, you see some brand new 19-year-old, you know, missing his arms and legs or brutally burned, or, you know, and you see that day in, day out, man. And, you know, I'd go outside and to smoke a cigarette, and, you know, people would be missing. You know, the results of that, you know, what I got from it is, you know, the guys that I knew that, you know, took their own life, is that they didn't have anyone there that stuck with them, you know, like I was talking about earlier, and that supported them, you know, and that's just, you know, so important to just have someone to stick with you. You know, when I was in the hospital, I mean, I had no friends. You're not trying to be social. Your life sucks. You don't know if you're going to live or die, or I'm going to blow my head off, you know, and people don't understand that. People would lecture me like, you know, you're just wasting your time right now. You should be getting your degree. And it's like, I don't know if I'm blow my head off tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, I could barely, you know, walk or freaking my body or use the restroom. So it's like, that's not a priority. What I want to be when I grow up is not a priority, but it's just so foreign and unrelatable to people, man. So that just needs to be more, you know, more awareness brought to it. And, you know, us as veterans need to be more supportive and get involved, you know, and just check on your buddy, man. Just a simple text message just goes a long way.
And I think that can apply to anybody. And I think you all would agree is, you know, check on your friends, your family, whether they're a veteran or not, but, you know, more, you know, especially if they're a veteran, doesn't hurt to shoot a little text. Laura, you were a woman in combat before people even knew there was women in combat. A lot of the general public doesn't know that y'all were kicking doors and kicking ass way before any of this debate started. So for you, being a woman coming home from theater, what were your expectations coming home? And what has been the effect, you know, similar to like Jose and Mike said, what has been the mental health aspects, or how it differs, or how it's a lot of the same between women and men coming home?
Well, first of all, thanks for showing that picture. I can't tell you how blue the sky was that day, and how awesome the vegetation smelled, and you could hear our family and friends in the background. And for the first time in 16 months, I could hand my weapons over. So that's a pretty moving photo. And, you know, for me, I always felt like I had to go a little above and beyond as a woman to prove myself and my worth in anything that I did when it came to the military. Like, oh, you can put a 76-pound Mark 19 on the Humvee, so can I. That's a grenade launcher. And I just always tried to push myself. So when I got home and went to sergeant school in 05 and started having this panic attack when we were in a simulated war scenario, I was like, oh, hell no, I can handle this. I'm a strong woman. I got to prove to everybody that I can still stick through this. And I don't like, it just took me about 2 months after that till I finally saw some help, because I couldn't get out of it. I was just in this hole of sadness and depression and panic attack after panic attack and flashbacks, and I couldn't sleep. And I don't know if it's because the military wants you to be super strong and they train you time and time again at boot camp, like be tough, be tough, be tough, or if it's because of my own personal conviction that I want to be just as tough, if not tougher than my male counterparts, that made it so hard for me to reach out and seek that help. But it was really difficult. And another point about post-traumatic stress that I want to bring up, actually there's two. My twin brother is a police officer in Madison, Wisconsin, and he dealt with mental health for 5 years. And part of that was a lot of veterans that he'd find, homeless veterans on, downtown. And he would try and help them, but he couldn't help them until they themselves wanted to get that help. And I think that that's part of how that buddy system can help, is if we can show that we get help, they can see how that help can help them. And then the other point I wanted to make, this term moral injury, I don't know if you've heard of it, but that really rang a bell with me. We spend our whole lives as civilians or children learning not to commit murder, not to do heinous things, not to want to hurt another human being. And then we go to war, and that is exactly what we have to do to save ourselves. And so then we come home and we have these moral injuries that are just like post-traumatic stress, but possibly different. But also that's, I think, was a big thing for me, is I had a hard time looking at myself the same because of some of the things that I did when I was overseas.
When I saw that photo, I knew it was special to you when I was reading your book, and I'm glad everybody got to see it, especially those who haven't read the book. So a little spoiler alert, that photo's in the book. And Mike McLeod, thank you for sharing that about Brent Hendricks and the events leading up to it, because sometimes it's the ones who you think are doing really well. And then Jose, all the guys that you saw, in the hospital environment, and you talk about that in your book as well, what it was like at Walter Reed during those times. And that's something I know for a fact a lot of people don't know about, was what the culture was like, being, going to and from appointments, surgery after surgery, and just seeing, complete despair among a lot of those service members. So thank you all for sharing that. It was, I hope all of you, everybody watching, listened, because what you guys said was really critical and really important. We're going to change lanes a little bit, and we're going to talk about, so anything you're comfortable sharing that you think would be helpful to anybody that's on that, in that market for writing a book. What would you guys say? Jose, let's start with you.
Really, you just kind of got to let it flow. And, it'd be time where it would take me a week to write a paragraph. But it was a damn good paragraph, and there was times where I sat down and it just flowed, and it's, and for me personally, it was very therapeutic, to kind of get that all off my chest. And
Mike McLeod, same question.
Speaking of Jose writing his book, I remember being on the Yellowstone River and getting this text from him, and watching him go through the editing process, and I can't really share even in this forum, but oh man, the writing process is some pretty funny stuff. And Laura, you might agree with me that maybe the first thing you should do is just write absolutely everything down and worry about editing later. Because he's like, okay, I'm not going to say that. Just say it all. You don't have to tell anyone later. Put it all down. The second thing is get yourself an impartial editor. And the third thing is reward yourself. When I was going through the most difficult part of the writing, I just went and got an Oreo McFlurry every day. after work, after writing, and it was great,
Mike, yeah, holy cow. Talk about a humbling experience. Once I got that editor, I realized I could not write to save my life. My comma usage is trash. So it was a slice of humble pie, to say the least. I have a full-time job, 3 little kids. We're renovating apartments, like we're doing all these things. And so my writing time was limited to nap times and to after kids' bedtime, writing my books often at night. And sometimes I'd wake up the next day after having a few glasses of wine thinking, wow, I did a pretty good job writing that night. And I think another point is you got to find an editor that really you can agree with. We hadn't talked about what the book title was going to be or what the picture on the book was going to be until further into the process. And my expectation was how to pee standing up in a blue funnel from Fleet Farm for 99 cents. And she did not feel that way at all. So we had to compromise, which is why there's 2 titles on my book.
But can I interrupt just for a second? I wanted to express to people Laura's comment a little bit more in detail on that, because you might think it's vulgar or just funny, but this is part of the thing about combat and war that's the kind of it's raw, right? So until you watch the only female piss in a little tiny cook opening like an inch wide in the back of a armored vehicle surrounded by 10 dudes, and the medic's got gloves on, and the medic's holding the bottle, and she's trying to do her business in front of everybody. I mean, these are the realities of things. So it's funny, but it's poignant as well. It's a big deal what they do.
So this was like really the first academic task that I had in a long time. And so it was just kind of learning how to write. When I first wrote, my outline, it was just one big giant paragraph with a bunch of profanity. And so I've always enjoyed writing, even when even when I was in high school, I would do the writing assignments just because I enjoyed doing it. And, my teacher would be like, man, what are you doing, man? You write like at a college level you're writing poetry in an essay. I don't know if you realize that. He's like, but you want to be a little thug. Like, what's wrong with you? But it just wasn't my interest. So, accomplishing, I learned how to write, and looking back when I first started, I'm like, oh my God, just learning how to write, and it motivated me to get back in school, now that I'm in a place where, I don't have, all that craziness going on. And it really like built my confidence now that I'm in school, I'm excelling, and it's really easy for me. So it's just,
you haven't read Jose's book. You need to. What he accomplished in there is pretty amazing, because I actually got that first paragraph of his first draft of his book, if you will. But the 2 things from that, one is he knew he had something to say, and you could tell even from that paragraph that here's a bright individual with something to say. He just doesn't know how to say it. And I don't know how long it was between that and the other draft that you sent, but it was like, holy moly, this guy, I can't believe what he did. He had no skills, and he taught himself the skills. And it's just an amazing read. You need to read it.
Yeah.
All I did is give him a kick in the butt every now and then. He did 110% of it. It's true. I know Riss Higgins also, who's also involved with Warriors and Quiet Waters. She was one of the coaches, and she did amazing work. The 2 of them together were unstoppable, right, Jose?
Yeah, no, I have so much respect for that woman, and so much, honestly, love for that woman. She taught me a lot, and just my interaction with her just educated me. And then God, spoiler alert, there's a lot of drug, sex, and violence in my book, and having to discuss those things, and in the way that my limited vocabulary was at the time, and as harshly I described certain things, and having to go through that with her, it was like, God, I'd have to mute the phone sometimes, and just like, either I'd be laughing or just like, God, she must think I'm like the worst piece of shit in the world. Like, what, what is she, and just to hear her repeat that back, and it's just like, God, people are going to read this, even when the draft was done, she's like, I want to give a draft out to everybody. And I'm like, why? No, don't. They're actually gonna read this. Don't do that. Like, you know, but yeah, man, that was an awesome experience, you know, and I found a friend and mentor for life in Riz.
Awesome. And hopefully she's watching today.
I know.
And if she is, yeah, great. Yeah, give her a wave.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a question from one of our viewers, and that is, do any of you have any plans to write another book?
I can go if you want.
Go ahead, Laura.
So I'm right now I'm a middle school principal, and every day brings crazy stories, whether it be from kids or parents or staff members or the general public. So sometimes I, write a little thing down to remember. I don't intend on writing anytime soon, but maybe in the future sometime when my principalship is behind me and I have some good stories to tell from that regard, I'll look into it. So we'll see.
Nice. Mike McLeod?
Always working on things.
Awesome. Jose?
Yeah, my goal ultimately is to, develop my book. It's not a huge read. Like I said, I wrote it in 13 months, and there's so much. I kind of got to basically like the meat and potatoes in my book, and but there's so much just life experience that I've had, and a lot of entertaining things that I've had, and I want to put that all together. But it's a very emotionally grueling process. You know what I mean? That's one thing I found out when I was writing it. I've had a lot of experiences in life. Some things in my childhood, and those things kind of go to the back. You just kind of bury them because I'm a man. I got grown man problems. I'm not worried about what happened, when I was a kid. But then you start digging at that, and then those things start replaying. You know what I mean? It's a very emotionally grueling task to do. But I do write, and I'm taking notes, and eventually that is my goal, to write a full book. But lately it's just, I've been enjoying my life so much and things have been so good. It's kind of hard for me to want to step back in that, but definitely I am working on it, and hopefully to have that soon. Yeah.
Jose, if you don't mind, you mentioned earlier how therapeutic it is, and it's so true. It was like my own therapy session every time. And when I wrote about the post-traumatic stress, I just have tears streaming down my eyes, but it wasn't really because I was replaying the post-traumatic stress. It's because I was just reliving all those emotions. And so, yeah, it's crazy to go put yourself in that mindset again and to dig up all those details that you want to share with the audience. And yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it was a liberating experience for me, because like I said, I've had over 100 surgeries. I couldn't walk for years, and things like that. But the majority of my injuries are cut up, with t-shirt and jeans. I look completely normal. I've had people cuss me out for parking in the handicap, so no one really knew what I was going through. No one really can see the open wounds on my body, especially like my family, but they just kind of looked at me sideways, like, what's up with this guy? He's in his late 20s, he's not married, he doesn't have any, he's just laying there, popping pills all day. Like, so for me to get that off my chest and kind of let the world and, my family know, like, hey, this is what I actually went through. It was kind of liberating to come out that closet, so to speak.
To all the panelists, just really quick, I got two questions, and the first one is going to be, really quickly, just tell everybody that's watching what you're up to right now.
Yeah, so I moved back to my hometown to become a principal at the middle school. My husband and I live on this amazing crystal clear lake, and we have just started the process of creating Airbnbs in the area. We just got our first one set up and fully renovated, a 4-bedroom house. So we like to keep busy, in other words. And yeah, I think my passion lies in just spending time with my 3 amazing, happy, positive children who sometimes fight over toys, and my really supportive husband who has been helping a lot, especially during this COVID time. He's a real estate agent, so he has flexibility with taking care of the kids, which has been incredibly helpful with my demanding job. Awesome.
Jose?
Last year, we fled communism in California and moved to the great nation of Texas. And, I have a beautiful brand new house in the hill country. We've just, we're newlyweds, and we've just been having fun, man. And Texas is a beautiful place. We've just been exploring. My wife is furthering her education. You know, I'm furthering my education, and really, like, this is by far like the happiest I've ever been in my life, you know, and I'm really beyond blessed, you know, and I really, you know, to think what my life was like, you know, 5 years ago compared to where I'm at now, you know, it's just completely night and day difference. So really what I'm up to right now is just loving life and enjoying it and just trying to better myself and you know, for the future, just build my future.
Beautiful. Mike McLeod?
Yeah, I got two 100-pound Malamutes that are kind of ruling the roost these days, and they're a lot of fun. But my wife and I have our photo studio, and we still continue to support Warriors in Quiet Waters. And you know, once you've been part of that service organization, which the Army is, you miss certain things about it. Like, you know, like one thing that I'm sure you guys all notice yourself is that when you're when you're driving through a parking lot, if you're on a post or if you're off post and there's a service member driving the car, they stop and wait for pedestrians, because you have this sense of you're a guardian of the community, or you're an adult part of the tribe, right? And you're taking care of everyone else because that's what you do. And I think that all of us are continuing trying to do that, and that's what we're certainly doing with Warriors in Quiet Waters. You know, we're all here for Warriors in Quiet Waters, and I just wanted to say how great the organization is. We've covered every FX since 2013, and the number of people have gone through is amazing. And you know, they learn to fly fish, but what they're really getting is a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And vets need, most of all, other vets, and they also need to be part of a community and be a useful part of that community. You know, I liken it to I like to hike. It's the difference between going out hiking, just like I'm going to go up this trail until I get tired and turn around, versus I'm going to go hike up to this lake. And it doesn't matter how hard the lake is, but you have a goal and a purpose. So that's what fly fishing is with Warriors in Quiet Waters, is, right? Because it gives you some reason to reach out to people. And it's not about me or you. It's about something that's has nothing to do with me or you. It's about fishing and catching that big fish. We're so mission oriented in the service. You know, the mission isn't an important thing. It's everything. And that, I don't think that really ever goes away to a degree. And so just, you know, if we have that goal of fishing, it's something we can use as an excuse to call up Jose or Laura or Saul and just shoot the shit with them. It's good stuff.
Appreciate that, Mike. I'd like to ask a pretty important question to all the panelists and this should connect with all of our viewers, because whether you're a veteran or not, this next question, you know, in my eyes and a lot of other people's eyes are, you know, it's pivotal, or it's critical. It's whatever word you want to describe it. But really quickly, during your service and afterwards, who was your main source of support and why? Mike, let's start with you.
Well, easily my wife. My job, I was always by myself. I mean, I was part of a public affairs unit, but I was always working by myself. And so, especially when I was downrange, I would go to a new unit, stick with them for a couple days, you know, down at the fire team level, and get to know these guys. But they were my guys because they were my brigade, but they weren't my guys. So whereas, you know, in general, everybody knows that we fight for each other. But because I didn't have a team that I was always with, most of the time I was fighting for my wife. You know, she was the one I always thought about. She was the one I said, I'm going to get home for that, you know, and in Lily's firefight, she's the one I thought about.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And hi, Barbara. Jose, let's go to you.
You know, I'd have to say, I'd have to say my mom. You know, our, you know, due to circumstances in life, you know, like our relationship was never perfect, but I mean, I spent about four months inpatient in the hospital, and you know what that's like. You know, you can't you have people checking on you every couple hours. You can't get a full night's sleep. You have doctors coming in at 4:30 in the morning, turning on your lights, and students poking and prodding you, and you know it's dehumanizing, you know, in a lot of ways. And you know, but my mother was there sleeping with me in the hospital room. You know what I mean? And she would, you know, cuss the doctors out if they came in too early or something like that, you know, like, and she just kept, you know, a foot in my ass, you know, like she just never let me get into that pity party. She was just always there, and really, like, she got dragged through the mud with me. You know, you know, I can't imagine what it's like for a mother to see her child, you know, I mean, I'll always be her baby, you know, to see her child, you know, go through those things, you know what I mean? And, you know, she would have to, I mean, there was times where I've had, you know, my colostomy bag just erupt and spill all over me, you know, and I can't even walk and things like that. And I'd just lay there and start crying, you know, but she wouldn't have any kind of negative reaction to it, or any kind of like feel sorry for me. She would just clean it up, help me, and continue to push me along, you know? And so, really, you know, she has to be the main one. And, you know, there's several key people in my life, but yeah, if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be here.
Thanks, brother. And I hope she's watching today.
Yeah.
I hope she heard you say that. So Laura, we'll finish with you.
Yeah, so my husband and I have only been together for 8 years. So by the time we met, a lot of my main post-traumatic stress was over, and I've learned how to, you know, live with it. I would definitely have to say my parents, who are on here right now. Hi, Mom and Dad.
Hello, Mom and Dad.
My dad was an MP during the Vietnam War. So that was part of the reason why I wanted to be an MP as well. He lost some fellow soldiers in Vietnam. So I think that it was really scary for my parents. My older brother actually was in Ramadi at the same time, and Ramadi was where the soldier was that you had already mentioned. He was a medic in an infantry unit. So both of us were deployed at the same time. And it was really trying for my parents and my twin brother. So getting home was really important, you know, because God, I can't imagine, you know, if Joe or I would have gone, how the family would have reacted. But anyway, so parents are a huge asset. And also there were 13 females in my platoon of 32 people, which is a very large ratio. And the 13 females and I got along amazingly well. In fact, 4 of the people in that Warriors in Quiet Waters photo were girls in my platoon. So you can see that we still support each other and still call on each other when we need it. And it's just been really great to have them by my side, because even though my parents have known me my whole life, there were 16 months of void. And so as much as they try to relate to what I've gone through, they can't fully grasp it, but those 13 females can.
Thanks, Laura. And, you know, to everybody that's watching that you guys mentioned, you know, that's I'm glad they got to hear you guys say that. Just a quick side note, and I know we're at about to be 12:10. We're going to wrap up here very shortly, but just really quickly, since you mentioned those 13 females, so through our application process, I get all the DD-214s and stuff like that, and so I didn't know they were going to start coming in, because one of your platoon mates, Carly Luft, had reached out to all of you guys, and I didn't know about it, but all of a sudden I got one of your guys' buddies DD-214s, and I was like, holy shit, she was in the invasion. Nice. Okay, she's coming for sure. And then it was like 2 days later, I got the next one, and I was like, damn, she was in the invasion too? Nah, because you guys are rare. I mean, the women in combat back then, you know, I mean, I don't know if you all went into hiding or what, but I've seen thousands of applications, thousands of 214s, and very rarely do I see the women that were in during the invasion. So then right after the other, by the 4th one, I finally figured out, y'all must know each other. There is no way I have 4 women who were in the invasion, the same MP company, like no way. So anyway, it was amazing, and we're so stoked that we had you. And eventually I'd like to, you know, try to get all 13 of your comrades out here.
That would be amazing.
Schedules and families.
Yeah, but it was quite the experience, and I thank God every day that I was allowed to come out there. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So to wrap up, everybody, I'd like you to, if you want, is for all of our panelists, is what's your one final thought that you want the public to know about? Mike McLeod, let's start with you.
You know, if you care about veterans, if you care about being an American, read these books. The more detail you know, and I don't think it matters necessarily whose book you read, just read the books with an open mind. You know, Jose's cover says it all. The American flag is on there. What does it mean to be an American? There's still great Americans today. There's still a great generation out there. Reading these books will make you be proud.
Thanks, Mike. Jose.
Like, there's shit in life that is just, it just sucks. You know, things happen and it's wrong. It's cruel. There's really no rhyme or reason or why. And it's hard to grasp the concept of why would this happen for a reason, or, you know, why do these things happen to people, or why does shit happen like this? But just no matter how hard the circumstances are, what you're going through, man, you can find joy and happiness in the end, and you could be happy. And that's not saying, like, you know, my message to people is not like, everything is for a greater purpose. And you know what I mean? Like, just believe in yourself. Like, no, like, there's shit sucks, dude. Like I live my life in constant pain every day. I wake up, it's painful to walk. It's painful to sit, you know, but I'm happy. I would not trade my life for anything, or the experiences that I've had, you know? And so I guess that's just my message to people, man, is like, don't let the bullshit get you down. And, you know, in reading these books, you know, and hopefully that'll, you know, make people appreciate or understand that, hey, you know what, maybe your life isn't so bad. You know what I mean? Or, you know, hey, maybe your job doesn't suck that bad, or your relationship doesn't suck that bad, or, you know, or there's, you know, you can overcome these things, basically. So that's just my thing to people, man. It's just, you know, life is great, you know, and it doesn't matter what you go through, man. You can come out on top.
Thanks, Jose. Laura, let's finish off with you.
All right. So
final thought.
Treat everybody just with kindness. You never know what they're going through. And, you know, both my brother and I were veterans, but we deal with our post-traumatic stress very, very differently. And so whatever veteran you meet, you got to just meet them for where they're at and help them with however you can, you know, and just be there to listen, be there for them. And just be kind.
I echo yours, Laura, and all of yours, really, but especially kindness. Big fan of kindness and empathy over here. Mm-hmm. So with that, we'll conclude today's panel. And Laura, Jose, and Mike, we cannot thank you enough for being vulnerable, for sharing your thoughts, for maybe even going to those places that you were when you wrote these books. It's incredible everything you guys shared today, and I think everybody that's watching is a little better for having listened to you and heard you, honestly. And our thanks is to you. We cannot thank you enough. And for our viewers, everybody that tuned in and everybody that stuck around until 12:14, we sincerely appreciate you taking the time out of your day and to hear these incredible journeys, to hear these incredible stories. And I hope you got something out of it. And if you liked it, let us know. Shoot us an email, because we can definitely do more of these. So anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. To our panelists, wish you guys the best. And you all know that you can reach out to me at any time. And thank you to the staff who helped put this on, and to all the staff at Warriors in Quiet Waters Foundation, everybody that's watching, all of our volunteers, our supporters, our donors, everybody that follows us on social media. We thank all of you. You guys are all part of the Warriors in Quiet Waters family. And I hope to see you all soon.